weapon, but they're not gonna get it.
No, but you are!
It's big, it's bad, and it's gonna blow!
Fire!
It's the Cobra detonator with long-range air-powered missiles.
Fire!
But G.I. Joe headquarters strikes back with rapid-fire guns.
Got him!
Fire! Cobra detonator comes with exclusive Nitro Viper figure. G.I. Joe headquarters and other figures sold separately. Batteries not included.
Cobra's got the news!
And we got trouble.
Get G.I. Joe tough!
I got it!
Super tough G.I. Joe General, a huge mobile battle fortress with working lights and electronic battlefield sounds.
Cobra's attacking! Fire! Launch the battle copter!
The General has a giant cannon that really fires.
Fire!
With lights, action, and electronic battlefield sounds, nothing beats the General.
A real American hero!
General has lights, 6 electronic sounds, a battlecopter, and major storm.
Mega Marines!
Cobra's hideous mega monsters are unstoppable!
The Mega Monsters attack with crushing tentacles and gruesome gut bombs. But G.I. Joe Mega Marines come equipped with pressure-molded bioarmor.
Battle damage!
And here's the G.I. Joe Monster Blaster APC with its lock-and-load cannon.
Lock, load, fire!
Mega Marines come with bioarmor. Cobra Mega Monsters and G.I. Joe Monster Blaster APC. Figures and vehicles sold separately. Cave Lab set not available.
You Cobra monsters are pretty tough, but I'm gung-ho!
Greetings and welcome to episode 6, Neon at Night. So tonight I have the courtesy of a super special guest. I also have some bad news as well. So James, spring-loaded G.I. Joe, my buddy, my partner in crime, my co-host, the Ed McMahon to my Johnny Carson, is not going to be with us tonight live, but he will be in the chat. So James is sick. He sends his apologies. And the show must go on. So whereas that sucks, we still have a super special guest. And if you can tell from behind me, I just finished my move. And my new Joe room is in shambles. So it might be a little echoey. If it is, I apologize because I have nothing set up. This is smoke and mirrors. Everything behind this decorative character rug is just a wall of boxes like Raiders of the Lost Ark. That being said, so tonight we're going to do a love letter to all things 90 to 94 G.I. Joe. And what better guest to discuss those years of a real American hero than probably the single most influential person in regard to a real American hero, and that's Kirk Bozigian. So I have to say I'm truly blown away. I'm totally humbled that Kirk agreed to come on the show. I can't stop calling him sir. He doesn't like it. But his Hasbro career spans from 1978 to 1996. He worked on A Real American Hero off and on from 79 until 94. He was a product manager, and he set the line from 82, 83, and the 84 lines. When you look at your flag points, you can thank Kirk Bozigian. When you look at your vehicle blueprints, you can thank Kirk Bozigian. Everything from 90 to 94, the sub-teams, the approach, thank Kirk Bozigian. So he was also the head of Boys Toys from 89 to 94. So we are going to bring on our special guest, Mr. Kirk Bozigian. How you doing, sir?
Hi, Chad. How are you?
I'm stellar. How about yourself, sir?
I'm doing great. This is
Awesome.
an honor to be with all of you.
Thank you so much for hanging out tonight, especially tonight. Right? It's voting day. I know that
You're
stuff's
keeping
important.
me away from my Super Bowl.
Hey, you said tonight, so I can't thank you enough.
I'm glad you were able to move the show to this night to accommodate me. Tuesday nights are really my only free night during the week. Between having my dad over a couple of nights a week because he lives alone, having him over a couple of nights a week, or going over to his place a couple of nights a week. My wife and I usually have Tuesday nights where we leave open, and so tonight worked out great. So I appreciate you moving the show.
Oh, no, I absolutely. Moving the show to a Tuesday was not a problem at all, sir. I can't thank you enough again for coming. So we got 20 people watching. The chat is going crazy.
Great.
Everybody's saying thank you for you coming here. I mean, they don't They don't give a crap about me. They just came to see you. And that's cool because I would too. So we got so many great people in the chat. I can't, I'm just going to try to go through some of them because they were nice enough to come. So we got Chris, Chris Githens is here. We have Payne's Toy Samples, Lawrence from A Punk with Toys, really cool guy. Lots of great people. Ratface 44, his name is James. We actually think he's probably more handsome than any of us. Samuel Edwards is here. He says, "Yo, Joe, sir."
Yo, Joe, Sam.
We got David in the house. We got Dale Santaford. We have my buddy Gaz, who's a huge fan of Mega Force and Captain Ace Hunter. Can't go wrong with that.
Awesome.
We have our friend Phil from a channel called Treasures for Trigger, and Phil lives in Japan. So that's cool. We got Phil
that's
here.
pretty far away. Welcome.
Yeah, and then we have George Aiken from the United Kingdom, and George is actually a huge fan of Action Force. And George and I always talk about Action Force and Red Shadows and SAS and all that stuff. So really cool.
Welcome, George.
And then we have A Toy Kind of Mood. Awesome. So Travis Moody's in the house. Samuel Edwards. Zazel, my friend from Australia, Sergeant Slaughter Slaughterhouse. He is the biggest fan of Sergeant Slaughter in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is really cool. And he actually, through his fandom, became friends with Sarge, which is really cool. And then we got my buddy Neil Temple from Canada. He's here. My good friend Jay Bartlett from Action Figure Adventure, Nintendo Quest, the Jan Rob Toy Show, also from Canada, is here. So it's good to see Jay. We got Michael Fleming, lots of people going on and on and on. Okay, cool. I think we're there. Oh, we got Lisa. Lisa's here. What's up, Lisa? We got James. This chat's just going nuts, sir. I apologize. Okay, cool. So, Mr. Bozigian. Kirk. I know you said call you Kirk, but you know, I respect my elders, and you know, you were so. You guys were so important in the formative years of my life. Like, just to talk to any of you, I have to show that respect. I have to show that courtesy. So, but I greatly appreciate it. So, what do you say we just, so real quick, everybody in the chat, if you have questions for Kirk, please put them in the chat and I will throw them up and he will answer your questions. So by all means, maximum participation for Mr. Bozigian. So Kirk, I know that when you came back to be the head of Boys Toys in '89, that you kind of took a new strategy. You and Steve DeGuano talked a lot about G.I. Joe being the dominant boys action brand. And you guys talked about toy concepts as a language. Do you want to maybe expand on that?
Sure. Steve's the one who originated that phrase. Steve was head of research and development at the time, and whenever we would look at new concepts, we weren't looking at individual toys. To do an individual toy in an organization like Hasbro was kind of outmoded. Instead, what we were looking for were brands, lines of toys that we could put together to build a brand, like a G.I. Joe or a Transformers. We occasionally took a shot with a single item. If anyone remembers Monster Face, I mean, that was kind of like a single item kind of toy that we knew would never go any further than just what it was. So Steve's belief was when he would go out as part of his job, he would go out to look at new concepts from inventors. He was always looking for concepts that could be defined as a new language. Micro Machines, for instance, was a new language for vehicles. So for us, G.I. Joe was a language. It was an ecosystem. Some people call it an ecosystem, where you would take figures and vehicles and play sets and create a world around them. Those were the kinds of concepts we were always looking for. And so one of the things we wanted to try and do to keep G.I. Joe at the top of its game was always looking at new languages to speak to new kids, new fans. So that was our whole approach with creating subgroups.
Cool. And then that's kind of where you see the things like, Captain Planet was becoming a big thing, and then you guys hit them with Eco Warriors.
Right, exactly. I mean, the idea was, my idea was, G.I. Joe was if it wasn't the dominant boys action figure brand, it was number 2 or number 3. It was 1, 2, or 3. And in the late 80s, if you remember, the biggest threat to all action figure brands was a group of pizza slinging teenage turtles, right?
Yeah.
And so our idea was, we should never let another company enter the marketplace with a new concept like that without us being there first. G.I. Joe should be the dominant toy brand in the marketplace. And if that meant creating our own line of Teenage Mutant Ninja G.I. Joes, we would have done it. I mean, that was the vision we had, that there should be that no other toy company should be able to enter the marketplace. We were somewhat successful, and sometimes we weren't.
True.
But that was the strategy. That was the strategy.
Well, and also, like, I know that you've spoken a lot about, when you succeed, it's great. When you fail, like, it's okay. Like, they didn't really, back then, the environment was different in the toy industry, where if you did fail, as long as you put your best foot forward, you fail forward. I know you had talked about that several times before.
Yeah, I mean, the toy business is used to failure, I guess, is the best way of putting it. I mean, back then, if your toy concept lasted 2 years, you were successful. Most toy concepts never made it out of year 1. It was like a 90% attrition rate in the toy business. So for a concept like a G.I. Joe to last from 82 to 96, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that was our, that's just the way the toy business works. In the world of baseball, your dominant superstar ball players hit 300. That means they fail 7 out of 10 times.
Right.
When they come up to the plate. So for us, that was our approach. Now, you didn't want senior management to constantly see you fail.
Right.
Because, so you got to try to show some success or some level of success. But everyone in the toy business knows just how tough it is.
Right. Right. Everyone's going to have a Clash of the Titans line.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Dale Santaford had a question, and it kind of related to something you had just said. He said, Kirk, were you okay with chasing trends with G.I. Joe trying to be like Alien and Ninja Turtles?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't try to chase them. We would try to be there first. So we would scour. I would scour news like the Hollywood Reporter. I would scour comic book trade publications, looking for like, well, okay, what looks to be the next movie license, the next big comic book series, and we would try to, quote, anticipate what was going to happen next. And
Star Brigade.
Exactly. Star Brigade came about because we had picked up intelligence at the time. We didn't own Kenner, and we had picked up intelligence that Kenner was going to try reintroducing Star Wars. This was in 89 or 90. We immediately started work on Star Brigade to say, there's no way we're going to let Star Wars enter the marketplace without G.I. Joe putting up some kind of fight.
And you guys held Star Wars off.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars never hit the marketplace, until later in the 90s.
Right. Right. And that's where a lot of people think that, oh, well, Star Brigade was it was an action reaction thing because Star Wars came back. It's like, no, Star Brigade came first and it held Star Wars
it blunted
for several years.
Right. Just like we had picked up information that DC Comics was working with Spielberg to develop a Sergeant Rock movie.
Yep.
So me being a huge Sergeant Rock fan as a kid, a huge fan of Joe Kubert, and decided, hey, why are we going to let that happen? Let's do our own version of Sergeant Rock and call it Sergeant Savage and his Screaming Eagles. So it was kind of like a combination of Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury, okay, melded together with our own backstory. And who better to illustrate it and work with it with us than Joe Kubert.
Right.
So I picked up the phone. I called Joe Kubert. I was a huge fanboy of his, had a great conversation with him. And the next thing we know, we're developing Sergeant Savage with Joe Kubert as our kind of creative guidance.
Right. And that's also around the time frame where you were really looking at Image Comics and what Image was doing, right? Being more mature, a little more, I don't want to say violent, but a little more mature.
Edgy. We saw we saw Image as artistically, they were edgier than Marvel or DC. I think story-wise, they were a lot more edgy. And we were looking to build a relationship with the guys at Image. So we flew out, had meetings with Rob Liefeld and Mark Silvestri and those guys, and we trying to put together a deal to have them take over the G.I. Joe comic book, believe it or not.
I would love to see a Liefeld G.I. Joe, because it would definitely be pouches on pouches. Like Liefeld has that thing about like pockets,
Oh yeah,
pouches on pouches. Really quick, the ma'am just got here, so this is actually my wife. So the ma'am's
hello.
Here. She says hi, and here's another question, and this is from Zazel from. Oh, hang on one sec. So James is here, my co-host, and James says, "I have a question for you, Kirk. What was your absolute favorite sub-series of G.I. Joe in the '90s?"
I'd have to say Sergeant Savage, because that was, I had the most total impact on that particular sub brand than anyone else. It was awesome. It was my brainchild. It was my, I did, let's call it the art direction on it. Provided all the guidance for all the packaging, the idea of having bullet holes in the packaging. That was all, we wanted it to be edgy. We really wanted Savage to be an edgier version of G.I. Joe. So I would say that's my favorite. My next favorite would probably be Star Brigade, because we had a lot of fun with that. We were able to do anything. That was a pure fantasy line.
The update from the Cobra Pogo Ballistic Battle Ball to the Invader was such an awesome update, because it definitely has that lunar excursion model feel with the update to it. It was really awesome. James and I were actually discussing that with Carson on episode 4 about how it changed from the Pogo to the Invader. Really like that. Cool. And then Zazel from Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse says, Kirk, what do you think of the current state of action figure aisles in toy stores today? How do you feel about the fact that 80s kids never grew up and put our toys away? Nobody beats G.I. Joe.
All right, so there's two questions in one. Right. Current state of the action figure aisle is, I think action figures have never looked better. I think they have a fantastic sculptural look. They look great. My biggest problem is kids aren't buying them. And that's a problem. And when I say kids, I'm talking about the 6 to 12-year-olds. They're buying the younger kids are buying. I have younger nephews now who are into Spidey and Friends, but they're 4 and 5 years old.
Right.
When they're 7 or 8, I don't know that they're going to be into action figures anymore. To me, the action figure business is the adult collector, and there's got to be a way. I think the struggle that companies have is to figure out a way of getting kids back into these concepts once again.
Do you think that some of that
without the infusion of young kids, these brands are only going to be able to grow so big with people like you and me buying them?
Yeah, because one of these days I'm going to die. Do you think that some of that is a self-fulfilling prophecy with like pricing kids out when you're looking at $30 action figures?
That's the other thing. I am shocked at the price points of action figures these days. And then the other thing is the business has changed from what we were doing, which were action vehicles with figures as accessories. Now it's strictly an action figure business. So how do you play out the story? Other than having one figure in one hand and a figure in another hand and you smash them together, what's the story? Where are the vehicles? Where are the play sets that extend the brand?
And that's an argument that I always make. And I know we're talking more about 90 to 94, but Zazel asked the question, and it's a larger universe question than just, we can only talk 90 to 94. So I knew this was going to happen. But when I see like classified, Tiger Force this person or Python Patrol that person or Copperhead, and I'm like, where's Copperhead's vehicle? Where's this person's vehicle? Where's that? They're like, it's like having Luke Skywalker with no X-Wing or Han Solo with no Millennium Falcon. Like the Mobat is a character. The Hiss is a character.
Bingo.
This thing's a character.
Right. Those vehicles are characters. Exactly.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They're part of a richer, broader world. And to me, like, well, we're adult collectors, so our figures have to be this big now. And I'm like, mine don't.
Right.
Like I want a world. I want environments. I want play sets. I don't just want what looks like a statue.
Right. Exactly.
But anyway, and then
the second part of that question though is interesting
80s
too,
kids.
about 80s kids who have never grown up. That's great. I mean, I think that's fantastic. And that's a whole new trend in toy collecting. I'm a kid and I never grew up. I still build model airplanes. I've been building model airplanes and model tanks since I was 4 years old. So I still do that as a hobby. So I haven't grown up either.
And I think that's actually that's cross generational. I just like you said, you still build, model vehicles, and here's my model vehicle, right there behind me. And I mean, every generation has their thing. Now it's more video games with younger kids, and I'm sure when they become our age, they're going to have libraries of video games more so than toys. But everybody's got their thing.
Well, and also look at how Lego has changed.
Yep.
I mean, Lego has a whole. I would estimate 30% of their business is done to adult Lego builders.
Agreed.
And that's something that 10 years ago no one ever would have expected.
Right. One thing that Lego has going for them, well, a couple things, is that they have the name recognition. They have great quality control. So their stuff's always good, and it kind of warrants the price points. Lego's not cheap, but they have the brand and they have the quality, so why not?
Yep.
And I'm going to get to this other point later because I missed the moment to throw it in there, so I'll throw it in there later. But James has a question for you, good sir. What is your aha moment of marketing Joe in the toy aisle?
Easy. And I've talked about this before. By let me think about it now. Yeah, by about 1988, 1989, when I was heading back to the G.I. Joe brand, and definitely by 1990, the toy business or the action figure aisle was filled with lots of great looking toys, lots of pretend play. And I happened to be shopping with my son one day. And we were at a Kmart. I was having new brakes put on my car, and we went into the toy aisle, and I tried to get him he was 4 or 5 years old at the time. I tried to buy him a Hot Wheels toy. He wasn't a big vehicle kid. He was a huge action figure kid. And when I tried to pawn off an 88-cent Hot Wheel car on him, he looked at me and said, "What does it do?"
It rolls.
And I looked at him. I said, "It's a car. It rolls."
Right.
And he put it down. I went into work that Monday morning and called a meeting with my design team. And I said, "Guys, the world is changing. These kids are playing Nintendo. They're playing Sega. They're getting instant response on the TV screen when they touch a button. We've got to start making all of our toys do things." So I want us to start taking every gimmick in the toy aisle that we can find. Pullback motor vehicles, spring-launched missiles, spring-launched helicopter blades, squirt guns. I want us to gliders. I want us to examine the toy aisle for every kind of possible toy mechanism we can put into our action figures and vehicles. And hence, we toyized, a word I coined, we toyized the G.I. Joe line. And I truly believe once we did that, we extended the G.I. Joe brand sales for another 6 years. Had we not done that, we would have been, G.I. Joe as a brand probably would have died a year or maybe 1990, maybe last year would have been 1991.
And that's a perfect time for me to segue to what I was going to say. So I'm going to chuck it in there now. What a lot of people don't know is that based on those decisions of stuff that like you just talked about, the Eco Warriors and the Captain Planet, the Dino Hunters in Jurassic Park, Star Brigade beating off Star Wars, how you toyized everything like that. You know, the rocket firing, the this, the that, the motorized, the gimmicks, all the toyetic playability of it. The biggest year for G.I. Joe was 1986, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right after this sucker came out, the Terrordrome and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't know, and I know you know where I'm going with this because I stole this off one of your interviews. Well, actually, I researched. The second biggest year of G.I. Joe was 1993.
Yep.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't think that. They probably think, you know, to the layman, G.I. Joe's two biggest years were 85, 86 or 86, 87 because they just look at Flag and Defiant. And so they think that's what makes it the biggest year, but it was really 86 and 93.
Yeah. 86 was big because there was little to no competition in the marketplace.
Yeah. Star Wars was gone.
You had our own Transformers. You had Masters of the Universe. And you had in 86, I think might have been the very first year of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I'm not sure about that. It was either 86 or 87, something like that.
I never liked the Turtles.
There was very little competition for the boys' dollar. By 1990, I remember, you know, having doing a management line review, and by 1990, there were well over 50 action figure brands in the marketplace. 50. Now, not every one of them survived. These are what were introduced at Toy Fair that year.
Right.
But that was the level of competition. So it's like you took a market share pie dominated or split up among 4 brands in 1986. Now you take that same pie and the pie has gotten a little bigger. Okay, sales have gotten a little bigger, but you're no longer the dominant slice. You have to slice that pie up maybe among 10, 12, 15 brands. So the G.I. Joe sales, and also you have to factor in what I said earlier, that if you can get a brand to last more than 2 years, you're a major success. By 1987, 1988, right after 86, G.I. Joe had been around since 82. We're in our 5th and 6th, 7th year. We should normally start seeing our sales come down. So my job when I came back onto the brand, my job was to recognize that G.I. Joe was in its decline stage. And I never wanted to see it disappear and die off. So we had to do things to reintroduce G.I. Joe to a whole new market in all new and exciting ways. And the whole toyize the line idea, together with whole new packaging look, together with those god-awful Deke animated shows, okay? And I'll be the first to admit they're not the best, but when you're not given any money by your management team to produce any new Sunbow shows, all right, you have to take what's offered to you. And Deke approached us looking to do a new series of G.I. Joe. We did it. And by 1992, 1993, G.I. Joe sales in 86, G.I. Joe sales were about $185 million. That was its peak. By 1990, G.I. Joe sales had gone down to about $85 million. Still a nice, healthy brand for many companies,
Right.
but not for Hasbro.
Yeah.
Hasbro,
They want that 100 million.
How come we're not doing 100 million?
Yeah.
So when we started doing the Toy Eyes features and all these other sub brands, when we reintroduced the 12-inch Hall of Fame figures, we took the G.I. Joe business back up to about somewhere between 120 and 140 million dollars.
Nice. Awesome. Next question is from the ma'am, aka my wife, and I hope you don't answer law, right? But my wife wants to know if you could be any G.I. Joe or Cobra character for a day, who would it be and why?
Probably be Hawk. Hawk, not only because he was like a colonel or a general.
Yeah,
he was different rank, had different ranks depending on the year.
Yeah, exactly.
But he to me always represented, along with, and I look at Duke and everyone says Duke is the most military looking. Not to me. I think Hawk, in all of his iterations, was perhaps the most military looking of all G.I. Joe characters.
He's General Patton.
Yeah, so that's why I would probably pick Hawk as my favorite. But of course, has to be Law. Has to be Law.
Yeah, well, of course, you're Law, right? Yeah, I know you're Law, but yeah, Hawk's a great character. And I'm just going to ask, just because we're talking about Hawk.
I mean, it's got to be
there it
Law,
is,
right?
There it is, right there. Yeah, there it is. You are Law. I love it. So, Colonel Hawk, there's always that kind of joke that he's the most low-key leader character rollout ever. Was that intentional? Did you guys just kind of intentionally slide it in that the Colonel just came with the missile system kind of low-key?
No, not really. I think the problem with Hawk was the way Larry wrote the comic books. Larry's the guy who breathed life into all these little lumps of plastic.
Right.
Okay. He created the bios. He created the stories. He built his series on the grunts, on the guys who were actually in the trenches doing the fighting and doing the work. And so Hawk was up here, Duke, Stalker, Roadblock. They were here. They were the NCOs doing the work of the military. So that's why, I think, Hawk was General Hawk eventually, I guess, was never, played such a dominant role in either the comic books or the TV series.
Cool. Appreciate that. All right. I'm going to move on to, and real quick, our buddy Hans Chow, he's a fantastic artist. So Hans is here.
Hello, Hans.
So just so you know, he's here. So
excellent.
I'm looking for another question because this chat is just going. Here's kind of a comment. Hasbro should really take a page from the time you were at the helm of the toy line. Care to comment on that?
All they have to do is pick up the phone.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm 6 miles away. I live 6 miles away from Hasbro.
Drive down the street, kick the door in.
And since 1996, they've never picked up the phone. And I've been back with my partners, Steve DeGuano and Fred Vuno. We've been back many times presenting new ideas to them. And they just ignore us. So,
and that's, I guess we're just going to expand on that. We're going to, we're going to go there. But I've always said to other people in my kind of space in the G.I. Joe community that the only thing that's ever killed G.I. Joe was Hasbro. And then that's it. That's it. Like G.I. Joe, the brand has been around since 64? And every time G.I. Joe dies, it's because somebody at Hasbro makes a decision. They're just like, kill it.
Yeah.
Kill it. Right. The non-continuation of the Sunbow, like you just said. They killed Joe Con. They killed a real American hero. Then they did that G.I. Joe Extreme with the people from Cincinnati. You're like, what are you doing? Like, and then they killed the modern stuff. And then when the modern stuff was out, then they roll out the movie figures, different price points. They look totally different. They're like, how come these aren't selling? Because they don't look like the anniversary figures. Like, who runs your company? But anyway, that's arguments for probably another show.
Well, that's why you have to start looking now outside of Hasbro.
Oh yeah, I do.
You have to look at Valaverse. I'm
Mhm.
throwing a plug for Bobby Vala and
Yeah.
Valaverse, and you got to start looking at Marauders,
Yes.
okay, gun runners. I mean, they do such a fantastic job of really creating realistic looking military 3 3/4 inch figures.
Oh yeah.
And Valid Bobby does the 6 inch figures now. I mean,
Right.
I have a collection of both of them. Now, they're not GI Joe,
No.
but I think they provide better value and they look better than
Sure.
GI Joe. So yeah, okay. I have to imagine that they have a red, white, and blue logo. That's all. Once I get past that,
Yeah. I'm going to open them anyway, so what do I care?
those figures live in my GI Joe universe very nicely.
One thing is I'm not a 112 scale collector. I'm specifically 118 scale, but
Yeah.
I do buy Action Force because what Bobby is doing, being that he's a smaller company, he's independent, right? So supporting stuff like that, like with Carson and Operation Recall, and
Sure, and exactly. That's the other reason
things
I
like
do
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Skeletron guys and Robo Skull and on, and
Mhm.
Call Sign Longbow is because they're independent companies, and sure, I'm going to back that, but also because what Valaverse is doing is it's different. It's not a 6 inch Marvel Legends character wearing the skin of GI Joe. Like it's something different, and so I'll back that.
Yeah.
And the thing with Marauders, this year at Joe Fest, I was talking to Marauder John, and I know they started doing they're kind of dipping their toes into the 6 inch market. And I just asked them, I said, you're not going to go all to the 6 inch craze, right? And they're like, no, we're not doing that. I said,
Right.
please don't do that because I need you guys. So
Yeah, no, definitely.
them
My
and
only
like Joy
suggestion to
Toys.
JFK there. My only suggestion to John is, start thinking about vehicles. I know they're a
Yeah.
big investment. I know they can be a big investment, but
Yeah.
if you can sprinkle in 1 or 2 vehicles every year or two, boy, that's going to just add so much more to the line.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hey, speaking of which, any chance for a General Bozigian in Classified or Valaverse?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Man, that would be rad though.
Although
I'd buy
the
that.
next time I have lunch with Bobby Vala, I'm going to mention that.
That's cool.
He's
cool.
we're a close community here. He's doesn't live too far away, and we've gotten together a couple of times for him to pick my brain. And I mean, there's a guy, right, who picks up the phone and says, "Hey, do you mind having lunch with me so I can talk to you about something I'm working on?"
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
There you go.
that's all it takes.
And then Christopher asks, what does Hasbro today need to do to bring G.I. Joe back to its glory days? Obviously, there's a theme here, right? There's a theme.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't tell you guys. I'd go to Hasbro with it.
Yeah.
I'd make
Very
them
cool.
talk to me and listen.
Yeah.
Seriously, the issue is so complex. I don't know that it can ever be done the way we did it. I mean, we had such a unique melding of product, advertising, the alliance with Marvel Comics, 2 brilliant creative geniuses at Griffin Bacall who decided to establish their own animation studio, Sunbow. Tom Griffin and Joe Bacall, who put that whole studio together from nothing to create the world of G.I. Joe on television. You need all of that. I mean, and it all has to work together. So I guess that I don't know that it can ever be done again.
Yeah, that was definitely that. I mean, I wouldn't really call it lightning in a bottle because you and Bob Prupus and some others, like you really hammered on that. Like you hammered on that for a while, but you had the right creative people at the right time, and the overall national identity was also different than it is today.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
you're talking 1980, Reagan, beat the Soviet Union in hockey. Like, we were riding a high back then. I still remember that.
Oh yeah.
That was a good time.
Yep.
And then Ken from Toy Connections. Hi, Ken. I didn't see you come in. So he says, Kirk, I just want to say thank you for your recent involvement in Operation Recall.
Yep.
Knowing the original team is there gives it a lot of extra anticipation.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. First of all, Carson's a great guy. He was the genius who kind of put this together. I get to Ron Rudat and I are fairly close friends. We haven't gotten to see each other too much in the last year or two because of COVID and all, but we would get together a couple of times a year to have lunch or a cup of coffee and talk about things. So it's great to get to work with him again. Mark Pennington, a great G.I. Joe figure designer. It's been great working with him as well. And so we kind of got, as Carson says, we got the old band back together again, and we're having a lot of fun. And you guys are going to be really excited about looking at and seeing the designs we've worked on.
Oh, I know it's so awesome.
I spent last Thursday morning working with Carson on the first 4 figures, and we got another 4 to do this Thursday, and 4 more after that, and 4 more after that. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's really cool. And then Payne's Toy Samples says, without supporting media, i.e. television, was that more freedom or less freedom to take chances?
Got to think about that one a little bit. What he means by that. Without supporting media. Oh, like without the support of media, I guess TV media. We never let the media guide us in our selection of figures or vehicles. Everything always started from the position that we're going to make great toys.
Yeah,
we're going to share those toy ideas with Larry and Marvel Comics, and we're going to share them with Sunbow, and let them use those ideas for how to develop stories around those vehicles and figures. So it wasn't what happens today, and I think that's part of the problem with action figure business today. The direction comes from a studio. Mm-hmm. The direction comes from Disney through Star Wars or through Marvel, and it gets filtered to the designers at Hasbro. And the designers at Hasbro are automatons. I mean, I don't mean to be that, demeaning, but my feeling is the real designers are the people working on the entertainment property. Yeah. So they develop the characters, they develop the vehicles, they turn those designs over to the R&D department at Hasbro, and the R&D department at Hasbro turns them into plastic figures.
Right. Make it work.
When we were there, it was the opposite.
Right.
We had the total creative control of figures, vehicles, and play sets. And we didn't care if they were featured in animation or in a comic book, because we were going to do them anyway. Yeah. And we were going to do them in TV commercials if we had to. Yep. The fact that Larry was a marketing partner with us really helped. And the fact that Sunbow, being a division of our ad agency, we're also marketing partners. Again, that comes down to, could the success of something like G.I. Joe be replicated in the 21st century? I'm not sure it could. You needed all those working parts to mesh together.
Right. And everything's so like instant gratification right now. And it's the same with G.I. Joe. Like, so, these guys wrote the script for the G.I. Joe movies, and they gave it to Paramount, and then they had the costume designers, and then they give it to Hasbro, and they're like, this is what they're going to look like, make them.
And maybe that explains why nothing's really been that successful.
Hey, yeah, there you go. And, I was listening to one of your interviews with Carson, and this kind of is all encompassing. It goes with Payne's Toy Samples question and other questions regarding how would you fix G.I. Joe in the toy industry now? When you guys would lay out a line, say like the 83 or the 84, when you would lay them out, you would lay out the figures, all of them with the cards, and say, well, maybe this figure needs to look like this, or maybe this card needs to be different. And then not so much right now, because now they're at least trying to do the, individual painting for each windowless package. But
Yeah.
box art, card art got very like wash, rinse, repeat, and it wasn't the way that you would lay out a whole year. Be like, this is a line that's coming out, and when it comes out, it all comes out.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, totally a little different. And yeah. Yeah, all these guys in the chat are just talking to each other.
They're supposed to be talking to me.
Yeah, you're supposed to be talking to Mr. Bozigian, you bunch of jerks. Oh, and then I got a comment. Ryan loves my shirt.
Oh, he loves your
Thank
shirt.
you, Ryan. Yeah, I appreciate that. So we already talked about what the biggest year was, and I'm going to pull up. Let me see. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. It's just a lot of talk like G.I. Joe needs to be a video game. Love the battle wagon. Do you have a battle wagon behind you, sir?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to get into that here in a second. Actually, you know what? Let's get into that right now. You want to get into that now?
Sure. Whatever you want to do.
Sure.
You're the boss, man.
You're the boss, sir. I'm just clicking buttons. That's all I'm doing. So, okay. What I wanted to ask you something, and then I wanted to ask you to regale us with the story.
Okay.
So the first thing is, this is a 1991 Snow Serpent version 2, and it still has the original style file card. And then when we move a little further into the line, we're looking at 93 Wild Bill version 3. The file card changes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to? Can you tell us why? Is there even a reason why?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't. I can't give you a real reason other than I know my right hand man at the time was Vinny DeLeva, and Vinny was always looking along with me, looking for how can we, spice up G.I. Joe? How can we make some changes? So when we started adding toyized weapons and all that, if you notice, the figures started to have call outs on them to talk about some of their, if they were real characters, real figures, some of the what some of those call outs would be, weapons or special accessories. And then we tried to do a profile picture. I think it was just we wanted, and then notice we changed the background of the card to those laser beams. So it was just a way to refresh the packaging. Again, the original Joe packaging hadn't been changed in 5 or 6 years. Right. And so we started to evolve the package just to make it somewhat more exciting, give it a somewhat different look on and just give kids another thing to look at on the back of the package.
Cool. So we're kind of talking about all this stuff right here, how it sort of changes the file card. But that's a good explanation. I just thought I'd ask.
Other than that, I honestly, there was no, there was a logic to it, I guess, but I can't explain it, right now.
No, that actually makes perfect sense. Like it's just the shape of the file card, but when you say it like that as a total concept, as far as like changing the front of the card and changing the back and the layouts and all that, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And you have a story about flag points and Cobra Commander, and how someone in your office took you to a holding area where there was a whole bunch of people who mailed. You had like 500 postal service mailer bags.
Yeah. In year 1, so in 82, the idea was to put together a special promotion. Bob Prupus was a genius at consumer packaged goods marketing, even though he never worked at Procter & Gamble. He was a genius at understanding how consumer marketing worked. And so when it came time to figure out a way of adding a little extra sales promotional impact to G.I. Joe, we came up with the idea of the only way you could get Cobra Commander was by saving the flag points and sending them in with 50 cents to us, and we would redeem them for a free Cobra Commander. And I mean, the other reason being Cobra Commander had been developed later in the development process. We never originally had come up with an enemy force until we had Marvel Comics come on board. And, as Larry said, well, who do they fight? And we said, well, they fight every other action figure brand in the toy box. He goes,
right. And it was Archie Goodwin and Jim Shooter, right, that were really like pushing
he said,
you guys
what are they
on
going to do? Just march on the parade ground all day? So
make
that's
their beds.
When, he and Archie Goodwin, I guess, came up with the idea of an enemy force called Cobra. So we needed a Cobra Commander. So they got developed much later in the development cycle, and so by the time Cobra Commander was ready, it would have been like late 82. So the idea was, let's make an offer on our packaging as a way to make use of these flag points that kids have been collecting. Right. The only way you could get them was send the flag points to us along with 50 cents. So we went away for Christmas break.
Yeah.
I warned our consumer service department. I said, Angela, the woman who headed it up, I said, Angela, we've got this promotion going and we're expecting maybe 10,000 redemptions after Christmas. So I came back from my Christmas break. I think it was like January 2nd or January 3rd. And my phone, the light on my phone that indicated I had messages was flashing. It was like a solid flash. And I picked it up and I must have had 30 messages from her. She hadn't realized I had gone away for a week on vacation. She said, as soon as you get back, come up and see me, young man. I was much younger then. Come up and see me. So I would occasionally go up to her office maybe once a month to check on consumer letters and complaints to see if there was anything we needed to address. So she took me by the hand and led me downstairs to the back of the building, and she showed me a holding pen that had been constructed over the Christmas vacation. The holding pen was maybe 20 by 40 feet, 12 feet high, all encased in chicken wire.
Yep. And
she said, do you see all those gray mail bags in there? Every single one of them has money in them. Dollar bills, 50-cent pieces, quarters, dimes. We had to build this secure area over the Christmas break. We had redeemed, or we were about to redeem, somewhere close to 75,000 Cobra Commanders in January of 83. And between the rest of the year, I think we ended up doing close to 100 or 125,000 Cobra Commander redemptions. It was a tremendous promotion. Yeah, flag point redemptions.
Gotta love it.
And it was because of that we started each year, in the first quarter of the year, we built in some type of consumer promotion.
Yep. That's awesome. That's so awesome. And then James, my co-host, my buddy, sorry, I'm shaking a little, says, I have another question for you, sir. What was the major reason G.I. Joe didn't survive from 94 into 95? We kind of talked on that. I don't know if you want to get in the weeds on that.
Well, it's really, why didn't it survive after 95? We went into 94 and into 95 with limited G.I. Joe product. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, in August of 94, the Kenner Boys team took over G.I. Joe and changed it from G.I. Joe to G.I. Joe Extreme. They had been working on G.I. Joe Extreme for about a year to a year and a half, unbeknownst to us. They were in Cincinnati, we were in Pawtucket. Unknown to us, they had been working on behind the scenes G.I. Joe Extreme. And when they were given the G.I. Joe brand in 94, or in August of 94 is when they took over, the G.I. Joe line, along with Sergeant Savage, was completely phased out to be replaced with G.I. Joe Extreme, which they thought was going to be the next generation G.I. Joe. Ha ha.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for answering that. And then Samuel just has a comment. And he says that he wishes you would take over GI Joe again. Right now would be the perfect time. And yo, Joe, sir.
Oh, yo, Joe, but I'm too busy doing other things.
Yeah. And then Zazel asks, other than Law, why is Sergeant Slaughter the best GI Joe? I told you he's cuckoo for Sergeant
He's cuckoo
Slaughter.
for Cocoa Puffs, huh?
Yeah.
He's from Australia, right?
He is. He loves.
Yeah, it's got to be something to do with Australia. I don't know. It's got to be. It's got to have something to do with the people down there.
So, other than Law, why is Sergeant Slaughter the best?
I think because, I mean, Slaughter had a personality that we brought into the brand from the WW at the time, the WWF, now the WWE, right? Slaughter was the, drill instructor, the super marine, or, so he kind of transcended. He had a superhero presence. I mean, all wrestlers are like real life superheroes when you analyze it, right? They do things ordinary humans can't do,
right?
Even though it's fake, right? But they do things that we ordinary humans cannot do. So Slaughter already came to the G.I. Joe brand with a certain persona, and I just think over the years, because he has this military persona,
yes,
it just ties in nicely with the G.I. Joe brand. So I can understand his admiration for Sergeant Slaughter.
And he is such an ambassador of GI Joe. Always.
Yeah, and exactly. And he's been that ambassador without Hasbro paying him a dime.
He's so
all
great.
These years,
He's so great. Yeah. He's awesome. And then my buddy Jay Bartlett says you're an absolute legend, and that he could listen to us. He could listen to us talk all night. He said you guys, so I guess he's talking about you and me.
YouTube chat. Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that.
No, just you. Jay is an awesome dude. He is a good friend. And I got a couple of others. And then Paracilius, Dragon Balls. After Sergeant Slaughter and Refrigerator Perry, what real life figure could be a G.I. Joe? You want to talk on the Stallone, the Rambo?
Well, we can, but I mean,
everybody knows that.
I think everybody knows that story. I mean, it's not really. It wasn't really Stallone's fault. It was his agent's fault. I mean, they were double dealing us and double dipping with us. We had made an arrangement for Stallone to be the G.I. Joe boxing trainer, and unbeknownst to us, the agent also sold the rights to Rambo,
Coleco,
and the likeness of Stallone to Coleco, another toy company. And so we just had to put the kibosh on the relationship. I don't know who could be another modern day G.I. Joe.
Kirk Bozigian.
Gronkowski. Gronkowski could be a great G.I. Joe character.
There you go. And then Hans Chow is asking, are you familiar with Joy Toy? What are your feelings on their work?
I actually have a Joy Toy product right here that is driving me insane. All right.
Oh, the mech. Yeah.
I'm a model builder.
Mm-hmm.
I build model kits as a hobby and almost as a living. This particular toy that you have to put together has been driving me crazy for a week now because it came with no instructions. And I consider myself to be a master model builder.
Right? You're no spring chicken at this.
I'm familiar with Joy Toy. I got to tell you, the realism, the detail is incredible. The figure, the 3 3/4 inch figure, is spectacular that comes with this toy.
Yeah.
Just tell Joy Toy to include English instructions so we know how to put it together. I actually had to go online and look up videos for how to put this thing together. And I still don't have it. And it was a gift to me from Vinny DeLeva, one of my, you all know Vinny. Well, Vinny and I have stayed friends all these years. He sent me this in the middle of the summer. He said, I got one for you. You got to put it together. You have to have it in your office. I just got around to building it last week, or trying to build it last week. So yes, I'm familiar with Joy Toy.
They're now the depots that they build for those mechs. They're kind of like diorama depots. Those are
I haven't
fantastic.
seen those yet. Yeah,
I use those for my. Well, I would show you, but they're probably in a box right
next
there.
time. Next
time I'll show. And then Phil from Treasures for Triggers says this is a treat. So again, thank you, sir. And what is your must-have 90s figure?
There's so many. I really because when I came back on the brand, I consider the 90s figures, the 90 to 94 line of figures, I really consider those my babies. Even though I worked on the original 82, 83, 84 line, I really think the 90s, and that's why I appreciate, this conversation this evening, and I appreciate this whole, look at the, neon at night stuff. Yeah, I know you guys really love the 90s characters as well. I mean, there's just so much. I would have to say that any of the quote real military looking figures in the 90s lines, even though they came with neon weapons, any of those real military looking figures are my favorites. And then, like I said earlier, Sergeant Savage would have been the next generation GI Joe had it been allowed to live. I mean, we had plans for Savage. We were working 3 and 4 years out with the Savage line that I think Savage could have become, not replaced GI Joe, but would have been the dominant sub brand of GI Joe. So
I am a gigantic fan of the 30th anniversary O-ring version of the Action Soldier.
Okay, yeah,
I love that figure. I love it. We talked about it at length with Carson. And then next question is James asks, other than Joe, what was your favorite concept you worked on? Play School Baby. Moving on.
Yeah, to be honest, I had a lot of fun working on the Play School line. Again, you judge your success. Sometimes you judge your success on, are you able to have an impact on the business? And when I was transferred over to Play School Baby, it was like a $20 million piece of business. And in the 2 years that I was there, we took it well past 100 million. And so just from the fact that we were able to create an instant brand of toys aimed at children 1 to 4 years old, 1 to 3, actually, I should say 1 to 3, and have that kind of an impact. And we did some really clever, creative things with that line. So, that would be one thing to think about. But as far as, what I think people are asking is the probably the boys brands that I worked on. I would have to say Bucky O'Hare.
Nice.
I had a great time working on Bucky O'Hare with both Larry Hama and Neil Adams, who created that. And, we just had a fantastic time working on that. And then, of course, I guess I would have to also include WWF.
That's really cool.
Yeah, the WWF product line was just fantastic to work on, and getting to go to their headquarters and meet with Vince McMahon and all the wrestlers there, and be on commercial shoots with them. It was just a tremendous time.
Just all the awesome stuff that you've done. That's so cool. And then James, again, my sickly co-host who can't be here. He's so bummed out. This poor guy, because he was like, "Oh man, we're getting Kirk," and then like he and I were talking, and then today he's like, "Man, I'm super sick." So he wants to know, what's your favorite '90s vehicle if you had to pick one?
Favorite 90s vehicle? Well, I guess it would be the Battle Wagon. I always liked, as a kid, I always liked having or playing with motorized toys. I as a kid, built a couple of motorized tanks, model kit tanks. I remember my cousin having, who was my same age, he had a motorized Remco tank. And we would just play with those vehicles for hours. And so when we got into the G.I. Joe, when I got into the G.I. Joe brand, the first thing we did was the Mobat.
Yep.
And by the time the 90s rolled around, we wanted to do something that would be even more spectacular than just a plain tank. So we came up with, a designer, Don DeLuca, came up with the idea of the battle wagon with the motorized Gatling gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think pound for pound, that's a great toy. And I guess because I'm such a fan of model airplanes, aviation, my next favorite would be the Ghost Striker. That to me, feature for feature, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, however you want to evaluate a toy, that particular toy packs so much play value in that toy that that's got to be maybe my all-time favorite.
So the Ghost Striker. So we're on episode 6 now. The Ghost Striker has made an appearance in 3 episodes already, and I almost put it in here because I knew it was your favorite plane. I could see it right behind you too.
I got it right there.
And and Carson knows this because he and I talked about it on episode 4 with James. But the base that I just PCS from was an F-16 fighter base, and I would just sit out in my backyard and just watch them tearing around all day long.
Uh-huh.
And then they would do their sonic booms, and my toys would fall, and I'd, but whatever. And then, we're on the subject of the battle wagon, sir. I'm just going to do it.
Okay.
Ready? Here we go. So the battle wagon, there is your gorgeous box art for the 1991 battle wagon. And again, I love the digital explosion so much. It just gets me.
Yeah.
So when you came back to the brand and you guys were making the commercials for the toys, just as you were re-energizing the toys, you were re-energizing how you marketed them, and you started doing serialized live action commercials.
Yep.
There's a specific story that goes with the battle wagon, and that involves you driving it, because that's you right there.
Yeah, we had to save money. We couldn't pay extras, so they threw me inside the battle wagon.
They did. And I have to thank Carson again, always for the images, but also for these specific live action images that I took. So there's that. You drove it, and then what happened?
Well, this was in the days before, even though we have some computer generated effects in our commercials, this was in the days of practical effects, they call it. And so there were explosive charges that ran across the front and back of the vehicle that a technician would fire by remote control. So it would look like the battle wagon was being hit by machine gun fire.
Right.
So while that battle wagon was constructed of plywood, and they needed somebody inside it to make the illusion that there was a driver. I'm amazed you can see my face so clearly. I was kind of that cage that's there, that probably weighed about 80 pounds, 75, 80 pounds, that whole cage that I'm in locked in.
Right.
They set off the explosive charges. The vehicle is being filmed, and it's rocking. It was not a real vehicle. It was, like a section of the vehicle.
Right.
The next thing I know, someone's yelling, "Get him out! Get him out! It's on fire!"
That right there.
The back half of the vehicle caught on fire. One of the explosive charges, I guess, it just had too much explosives in it and blew off. And this was inside. This is a studio, inside a studio.
Right.
It blew off, and that whole back half of that vehicle caught on fire. And I'm trapped inside the front of it, not able to lift that canopy up to get me out. So a couple of stagehands and me had to, try to get that canopy lifted so I could crawl out of there.
And there's your Duke actor. He's just like, yeah, look at me. I'm having a blast. And you're like,
yeah, but he was able to jump out.
Yeah, he just jumped off the side.
Yeah.
I love that story.
I never told my wife this story.
It's a crazy story, but I love it. Like, you got to suffer for your craft, and you definitely did.
Yep.
That's just absurd. Like, just to see that, like when you take a still of it and you see how much this vehicle was actually on fire with you trapped inside right there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, I just since we were talking about the battle wagon, I kind of wanted you to share that story.
Yeah.
And then Hans Chow, I guess he already asked us, are you familiar with Joy Toy? Like, you already answered that. And then he says, also, Kirk told me hi, that made my day. So you made Hans Chow's day. He's a school teacher, and he's also a fantastic artist.
Oh, wow.
He's a fantastic. And then David asks, what was your favorite consumer promo with flag points? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great one. Gotta think about that for a minute. Favorite consumer. Well, I guess maybe the second one that we did, Major Blood, maybe would be the next favorite consumer promotion. People forget about him. But the only way you could get him in that particular year in '83 was through that consumer promotion. And so I guess that would be another good one, because eventually the flag points turned into a new business for us that I ended up running. I was taken off the brand and given the task of trying to build a direct marketing business for Hasbro. And so I started working with Madison Avenue ad agency, BBDO Direct, and we started putting together an entire Hasbro retail toy shop, much like they have today. And this would have been in the 85, 86. And we started using as our foundation the flag points, and we started marketing old G.I. Joe inventory using the flag points. And so we kind of walked away from consumer promotions with flag points and just started giving free in-pack or on-pack promotions like rings, comic books, camo face paint, things like that. We gave away those little minifigures that came with the toys.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good question too.
Yeah.
And then Travis from A Toy Kind of Mood says, Mr. Bozigian. See, we say sir, we say Mr. Yeah.
Guys, I'm not going to respond to that. You got to call me Kirk.
No, no. And then he says, any comment on toy companies having to operate differently now with these places that sell laundry detergent and toilet paper as compared to numerous toy stores we had before, like KB, Child World, Circus. Right?
Oh, so he means things
Toys
like
R Us.
yeah, he means Family Dollar and Dollar General and thing, I guess is what he
Target,
means.
Walmart.
Yeah. Every time I walk in, I don't really go to Walmart a lot because, they're not as close as the Target is to me. So I go to Target a lot. And every time I go to the toy aisle at Target, I just get nostalgic for Toys R Us. And I get nostalgic for what today's kids are missing. Every time I go to a mall and there isn't a KB toy store there, I feel a little sad. Every time I, drive by what used to be a Child World, I mean, these are toy retailers many of you probably don't even remember. These were like destination places to go for toys. I don't really consider Walmart or Target destination places, and they cherry pick manufacturers' lines to the point where a lot of toys that we should see never get the opportunity to be seen because nobody carries them. I mean, like I tell my students, in the marketing business, you have two customers you have to sell to. You have to sell to the customer first, who's your retailer.
Yep.
Target, Walmart. If you can't get them excited, you, a consumer, will never see the toy on the shelf. So you got two levels that you have to sell to. And so I just get sad when I walk into Targets and just see the limited amount of offerings that they have. And that's just the state of the business these days.
I really miss those days of Child World, Toys R Us, like being that kid and going in those doors. When the doors opened, like just the experience of seeing that all the way to the ceiling. Like, so my Joe room has nothing except for my USS flag, where I obviously, because this thing's like, it's the size of a couch.
Yeah.
But if you see right there on the shelf,
Toys R Us,
there's my Toys R Us sign. That's one thing that when I put my shelves up, I put my Toys R Us sign up. And
well, hopefully, I haven't been to Macy's yet, but they're going to have a Toys R Us inside Macy's. Now it's never going to be. It's never going to be like Toys R Us, but hopefully they'll be able to resurrect a portion of that excitement again.
And Canada still has Toys R Us's, but my Canadian friends say, don't get too nostalgic. It's not the same. But
yeah,
you might remember this. You're about 1 year older than me. Do you remember? Yeah, like you're knowledgeable of the New England and the tri-state. Do you remember before Toys R Us put that giant one in Avenue of the America and Times Square, that massive one? Do you remember the one on I-95 near like Bridgeport, Connecticut?
Yeah.
I used to go to that one all the time as a kid. And we would go from Brooklyn, we would cross over and we would go up into Connecticut just to go to that Toys R Us near Bridgeport. And I always remember going there as a kid and buying your products that my parents loved to buy me. Yeah. I'm going to tell my mom that I talked to you and she's going to lose her mind. So that's actually a really awesome question from Travis. And then I got to give the shout out because it's James and he's sick. And he says he's learned so much tonight. Thank you.
Well, we'll have to do this again and hopefully he can participate. So,
yeah. And real quick, we don't want to drag this out all night. And I'm sure you got football and election stuff to get to. But my buddy Gaz says the next character should have been Ace Hunter from Megaforce. And I just had to throw that up there because we always talk about Megaforce. And then Mike says, if you could go back and change a figure or vehicle, what would it be? Even if it never made it to production. Yeah, that's a good question.
Ooh, I got to really think about that one. You could go back and change a figure. Figure or vehicle, what would it be? Well, I guess a figure might be Chuckles.
Yeah, with the Hawaiian shirt.
No offense to the Hawaiian shirt, but I would have liked to have done Chuckles, a second version of Chuckles is more military.
Right.
And maybe a vehicle that I might have changed, I might look to change. Wow, that's really testing my memory now. Because everything we did, we really tried to do. Maybe the Cobra Bug. I never liked the design of that vehicle.
I love the bug.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, everybody did, but I didn't. So maybe I'd probably change the Cobra Bug.
I didn't as a kid, but when I became an adult collector, as my collection grew and the list of stuff that I didn't have got smaller, then these vehicles, they obviously start creeping to the top of my list. Yeah. And so at some point it's 50% like, well, I guess I gotta get it. And then it's 50% convincing myself that I really want it.
Yeah.
It becomes like a balance. And then when I finally got a Bug, I stripped it. I got repro stickers from Toy Hacks and it looks brand new. And it's complete and I love it. I love it.
Okay.
But when I was younger, I was like, no, sir. Don't want that.
Yeah.
And then I did.
Weird looking.
Yeah. And then Hans, are you familiar with the G.I. Joe Thunderwing Ghost Striker versus G.I. Joe Thunderwing, pound for pound, aircraft versus aircraft.
No, I'm not.
Thunderwing is.
I don't know the Thunderwing. That must be one of the newer vehicles that they've done. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
So then your answer is going to be Ghost Striker, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go, Hans. Ghost Striker.
Ghost Striker. Look at all that it does.
Oh, it's so
lights
rad.
And sound and spring-fired missiles and projecting enemy targets on the wall. I mean, come on.
Ace in a flight suit with a removable helmet. He's so good.
Real-looking military flight suit. I mean, come on.
So and then speaking of Hans Chow, because he's all over the place, this guy's great. Speaking of toyetic, what is your opinion of Sigma 6?
Actually, when Sigma 6 came out, I kind of thought they were weird looking, okay, because they were based on the animation and all. But in reflecting back on it, it was probably a decent attempt at doing something different with G.I. Joe aimed at kids. So while it's not my favorite look or line, at least it was a shot on goal to try and get to kids. So
yeah. And I have to say the 2.5 inch that his tank with the removable back, and it comes like that battle emplacement. I love that tank.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for his tanks. I have like 40 something now. Like I just keep making customs and buying more and more of them. But that his tank, I only have one, and I love it. I love it. I have a little mask figure standing next to it. I have Miles Mayhem next to it because I just love it. Yeah, cool. Very cool. And then James, this might be lengthy. I don't know how lengthy this is. I mean, you could just say a lot, but other than you and Vinny, how many Hasbro employees were Joe's Cobras, either by name or sculpt? So you got Ron Rudat for sure. Yeah, but you guys were using Sears catalog faces, right?
No, I mean, but there were so many. I mean, almost every character in the line after maybe 84.
Yep.
Almost every one of them is modeled after somebody at Hasbro or at our ad agency. So yeah, just so many for me to call out.
A lot. The answer is a lot.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so cool that you guys did that. And then since we were already talking about it, so David says, so you could run Hasbro Pulse the right way. Have you seen how much of a mess that stuff is? I mean, I don't know how much you keep track of. Like,
I don't. I'll be honest.
Your old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. I don't. I mean, I kind of follow it through you guys vicariously. I see things on Facebook and but I honestly don't really even follow Hasbro Pulse at all.
I love the fact that you pop in and out of Joe groups, like even in our 9094 GI Joe group. Like every once in a while, randomly there'll be like a Kirk Bozigian comment, and I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, there it is."
Something will spark my, I'll see something, and it might be I should correct what someone thinks they know, or I'll agree with something that someone says they know, or I just every now and then I just jump in.
When you came back in '89 all the way through the end of A Real American Hero, like you're the architect, you're the man. So yeah, you definitely know that stuff. And it's rough. I can kind of relate, because when I was an instructor for the Sergeant's Major Academy, I loved it. I lived it. I breathed it. And then when it was my time to move on, I didn't really keep track anymore because things changed, and I was like, I don't want to get salty, so I just don't keep track of that anymore. But
yeah.
Hasbro Pulse is a mess. They'll come to a live stream and they'll be like, "Hey, so these items are for pre-order, but the pre-orders went live an hour ago and now they're sold out." And you're like, "What the hell am I watching you for?"
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, I'll tell you, sir, it sucks. Like, I love G.I. Joe, and I hate to be like the negative Nelly, but I just bash on it because I'm like, God, you guys are like the greatest boys toy brand ever. Created the term action figure, and you just can't get it right anymore. So anyway,
yeah, and that's the sad thing. They don't seem to be able to get it right.
Do any of the Hassenfelds, because there was just the one left, is he still there?
No, Alan hasn't been there
Alan?
for a while. Yeah, he
Yeah,
has been there for a while.
it's all just committee, right? It's all just shareholders and
Well,
stock
it's all
people.
yeah. I mean, it's a public
corporate.
company. It's just it's soulless right now. So
But the Merrill and Steven, those kind of days and operating procedures are just gone.
they're gone. They're gone. They've been gone for a long time.
Yeah, it sucks. But I gotta say, I grew up in the best decade that there was to grow up in, and I will
No
never
question.
take that for granted.
No question about it. We were
And-
pioneering things in the 80s and 90s. We were living it at that time. And I look back and I talk to my partners now and I say, we were writing the book on how to do all this, and we didn't even realize it at the time.
You did. You did.
know?
You 100% did. Going back to 64 with Don Levine and all that stuff, like leave no flank exposed. And then you emulated that in the 90s when you came back with EcoWars, DEF, Dino Hunter, Star Brigade, all that stuff. Like you didn't leave any flank exposed, and you directly competed with or beat everyone to it. And it was so great. Child World, Toys R Us, G.I. Joe. I can never be thankful enough for what you guys did for our childhoods. I just have to say that.
Well, I'm just glad that you guys liked it and enjoyed it, and I'm glad you're still liking it and enjoying it.
Oh, always. And my kids are going to have to deal with this the day that I get put in the oven. They're going to be like, what am I going to do with all these toys? And then Travis's follow-up is, do you think that Hasbro not getting it right has to do with fear, i.e. like military patriotism, etc.?
I don't know.
That's a pretty broad question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it has to do with that. I just think it has to do with they're locked into a new formula. And the new formula is take what Hollywood gives us and replicate it. I don't think that they have the creative minds to create a product line from nothing like we did.
Yeah.
And I just think that we were in that regard we were way ahead of our time. And I like I said earlier, I don't think they can duplicate that again.
No, it's like a completely creative crossing the streams now. Where I know, like back when you guys ran it, it was very much a, you guys design stuff and you take it to R&D, and R&D figures it out, and then it goes to the engineers and so on and so forth. And you got the Marvel guys coming in on it, and you guys, and it's just such a creative process.
Yeah.
And then James says soulless. He said, I'd have to agree with you and Chad both on that. LOL, Hasbro has become soulless, unfortunately. They're doing what they got to do, I guess. But
yeah,
I always got Marauder Gunrunner, so I'm good to go on the 4-inch stuff. So.
That's why I say, there's other people out there giving you guys what you want, giving us what we want, So
yeah, absolutely. Sir, I cannot thank you enough for joining me today.
Well, it's been a fun evening. I've enjoyed it. We got to do this again sometime down the road.
Absolutely.
Always happy to jump on board.
We will put a pin in it, and we will readdress this later on for a future episode, and hopefully
Excellent.
James will be with us next time, so James can gush all over you.
Excellent. Okay.
Cool. I went ahead and I put your Instagram and your Facebook in the show notes, so people can find you there.
Sure.
And then I have to thank everybody for coming and hanging out and asking all the questions and hanging out in the chat.
Yeah, I appreciate it, everyone. Thanks for the questions. It's been a great evening, a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bozigian. I'm not going to say Kirk. So thank you so much.
Next time, Chad. I'm going to start calling you Articulated.
No, it's totally Chad. All right, Kirk. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so
evening.
much.
Yeah.
Have a great night. Bye,
Take
sir.
care.
Get me the plasma tops and
comes the sinister Cobra Paralyzer with 3 awesome missiles that really fire.
Fire! I've got the plasma tops! Cobra!
Not so fast! Snake breath!
It's the G.I. Joe Badger with 3 powerful firing missiles.
Fire!
G.I. Joe, American hero.
You like heights?
G.I. Joe.
Cobra Paralyzer and G.I. Joe Badger sold separately.
Anybody got a parachute?
Joe, Joe.